Hi, everyone. It is time to regain your seats, for this very presentation has already begun, and we're on a timer. All right, welcome, everyone. My name is Raphaël de Courville. I am the Processing Community Lead at the Processing Foundation, and I'm here today with Steph Tervelde.
Hi, I'm Steph. I'm currently the lead maintainer for processing.
Yes, and before we get started talking about everything processing, we thought we should tell you what is processing. So processing is a flexible software sketchbook and a language for learning how to code. Since it was first released in 2001, it became one of the most widely used tools, open source tools, for creative coding and for computer science education. Just wanted to have a quick idea of who's in the room, just by a quick show of hands. Who has used processing in the past at any point? Okay, this is the right room. Who has used processing in the last 5 years? Yeah, so it's good that we're here. In 2023, processing hit a major crisis, and that could have been the end of the project. What we want to talk about today is real talk, what it took to bring processing back from the edge, what happened, how we dealt with it, and what we learned while putting the pieces back together. So how did we get there? Let's go back in time to the year 1999. This software exists back then. This is not processing, this is design by numbers. It was created at MIT, at the Aesthetics plus Computation group, that was led by artist and all-around genius John Maeda, together with his students. And it was, in fact, the main inspiration behind processing, as you can probably see if you're familiar at all with the UI of processing. DBN was great, but it had some pretty heavy limitations that the creators of processing became very aware of when they tried teaching this tool to designers. Mainly the fact that it was limited to 100 by 100 pixels and that it was grayscale only. This is fine for teaching basics of computation, but if you want to actually do any kind of meaningful work in design, obviously this is not going to be enough. So Ben Fry and Casey Rees, here Casey on the left and Ben on the right, wanted to take the ideas that they were exploring and exchanging and learning from MIT and bring them to the larger world. And those ideas were mainly three. First, they wanted to bring coding tools to a new audience. They wanted to share what they learned by teaching to designers to a broader audience. And I think this idea of accessibility to the tool, if we expand this idea, is something that is still very much alive in processing and the broader processing ecosystem. And yeah, they wanted this to be accessible to more people than they could physically reach by their workshops. They wanted a tool that would bridge the gap between graphic design and computer science and be a kind of synthesis of both. And they wanted a tool that lets you be more expressive and what they called sketching with code, a way of writing code that is more exploratory and where things get figured out in the process of coding rather than just trying to implement some specs that were predefined. And they called this tool processing. It came out in 2001, as I mentioned before. This is the alpha version of processing. And the name processing was a nod to the idea of software as a living creative process and not just a product. By 2003, processing was already quite popular. There were a lot of people playing around with it, doing all sorts of things, including hardware and 3D and color things and printing, you name it. There was also a very alive and vibrant community online, not only on the forums, but also because you could export Java applets from processing already embedded in a nicely self-hostable HTML web page. And many people did that, and they were all tagged with built with processing, which meant you could easily find them. It was great. In 2008, version 1 of the software finally came out. And what was interesting by then is that it wasn't, the creators realized that it wasn't only a teaching tool anymore, but actually professional designers and artists were using it to do some meaningful work in the real world. Not coincidentally, this is where I myself got familiar with processing and really started getting into creative coding. You can not quite actually see me, the little red arrow there that was at a workshop in Paris in 2012, where I got to learn processing from Julien Gachadoa, also known as Vega with a 3. And this is the first ever sketch that I ever made. I was very proud of it. I still am, actually, I think. This is also when...
Yeah, this is also when I got introduced to processing. I started design school in around 2012, and I had already always kind of played around with code, but processing was the first time that for me it kind of clicked. And yeah, these are the first sketches that I made.
Yeah. So yeah, I think really around this time, it was sort of the ideal time to be a design student, also kind of nerdy, wanting to learn code, because that was really the heyday of processing, and we got to see the release of Processing 2.0 in 2013, relatively shortly followed by the release of Processing 3 in 2015. And skipping ahead a little bit, in 2020, the work began on Processing 4. This is a little bit different because Processing 4's inception was mainly a reaction to some technical issues that were starting to begin, like to crop up. Java 8 was end of life. Processing was still running on Java 8. Mac OS had deprecated OpenGL, and there were quite a few things where processing was starting to play catch up. A lot of amazing work went into Processing 4 from the community, from the maintainers, and in 2021 it was the 20th anniversary of processing, and there was a huge fundraiser that was very successful. That's not actually what is on the screen. That's when did that happen? What? Okay, can go. I'll go. Did you see that before? I'm not sure. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So, 2021. A major fundraiser that coincided with the 20th anniversary of processing. There was this beautiful community catalog that included tons of pages from the community, people who shared everything that they made with processing. It was wonderful. And it was also like a huge influx of financial support for processing, which doesn't come without problems, including like structural questions of how do you reorganize a foundation when everybody has been volunteering nights and weekends for 20 years and suddenly you have to professionalize. And we're not going to get into that, but that was definitely a big concern. But also, that also brought up some more things that we're going to briefly touch upon in a second. But in 2022, because we're bound by time and space here, so I need to follow the timeline. Chronologically, Processing 4 came out, the final release, or like at least the first stable release, rather. And one thing I wanted to mention about this is, like, if you look at this and you look at processing from 2001, there's not that much difference. That's actually something I think that is wonderful, that especially considering that we're targeting beginners, is that, the consistency, not only of the UI, but also of the API is a remarkable feature of processing, which means, for example, that tutorials or books or videos that were targeting processing beta are still somewhat relevant and could be used today in Processing 4 without too much change. The code should run with very minor changes, which is, not really a common thing for any programming language or framework, let's say. But not everything was rosy, as I started mentioning briefly. For the longest time, processing relied on a very small but dedicated core team. And as contributors moved on, fewer people remained that had like institutional knowledge, deep knowledge of the complexity of the code base, and maintenance became harder. Some key libraries stopped working. By the time Processing 4 was released, that was mostly focusing on keeping processing running in modern machines. So yeah, this is also the time when I joined as a processing community lead. I wasn't really aware of all the discussions that were going on, but I was made quickly aware when the historical team stepped down, and yeah, over some internal disagreements about the direction of the project. Again, not really a story to tell, but what I can tell you is that the project development kind of stalled for a bit over a year, and many people assumed that processing was just dead at this point. This wasn't true, and that's why we're here in 2024. So I was there for the community. I was not brought up to do any kind of project management, software development, any of that. I have some art, graphic design, typography background. I code, but as a creative coder. So I wasn't in a position to take on that role. And from my perspective, this is basically how things felt. Yeah, is there anyone on board who can fly a plane? And the person on the other end of the line was Steph. And from his perspective...
Yeah, so I entered 2024 with 150,000 lines of code. Good start. And now what?
Yeah, so I think at this point, plane crash rules apply. So you need to keep the plane in the air, you need to find where you're going, and you need to communicate, third. So yeah, Aviate. That means maintaining control of the aircraft, fly safely, and ensure that it is in a stable and controlled state, aka keep the blue side up. So for us, that meant identifying any critical systems that were at risk of immediate failure and patching them first. You can tell us a bit about this, for example.
So we made a giant org chart, basically, of all the infrastructure that was currently keeping processing alive. Luckily, it's always been built with kind of a small mindset, so there wasn't too much, but still none of it was documented, there was no overview. So that's what we started with, and we took some of the services that were hosted on servers to more Netlify, more stable environments.
Yeah, we also mapped some of the core features to see what was really important to keep running or not break as we were making changes. In the case of processing, that was mainly the server infrastructure and domains. As Steph mentioned, we migrated that to something that didn't require as much hands-on maintenance. And second, we needed to recover our ability to make releases, because that wasn't something that we could do when we joined. And that was a problem, because if something broke, we didn't really have a way to issue a hotfix or a patch release. And with that, come the first release.
Yeah, so in, what was it? November 2024, we released processing 4.3.1, which was a very uneventful release, which seems boring, but to us, it's very nice.
Yeah, and importantly, we made sure that most of the changes that we made, or as many of the changes that we made, were not just quick fixes, but actually built resilience in the project so that the next person who came around, or the next crisis who came around, wouldn't be quite as hard to resolve. For example, so through that process, we've built up automation for releases, including some testing. There's still a lot more to be done. Building automatically for all platforms directly in GitHub Actions, and also code signing on macOS and Windows, also automatically done during the CI/CD. This may seem obvious for some people, but that wasn't the case, and that's something that now is there and will make it a lot easier for anyone else to recover, or for the project to recover in a future scenario like this one, which hopefully will never happen, but you know, it's better prepared. Yeah, and we actually reduced the number of manual steps that were required for release from about 20 to just 5. mostly about updating the website. And we documented the whole process as a release checklist as well. So yeah, we're trying to make ourselves redundant here while we understand the thing better. We also created some, or not created it, but yeah, adopted some uptime monitoring for the website because yeah, during the crisis, sometimes the website just went offline for some reason. So next, navigation. So where are we? Where are we going? Make sure that we course correct. So once we addressed the most emergencies, we wanted to identify broader issues that needed our attention. There were not too many of them. You can take a picture of that slide. We only have 4 minutes left. So, but also there were some good things that we could rely on, like a sizable user base. Despite what anyone might think, there's actually a lot of people who still download processing every time we make a release. It's not showy, we don't make a big noise around it, but there are a lot of people who are still like very much in love with the project and use it every day, especially teachers and learners, but also artists. Now we get to think a bit further in the future, think about setting a course and longer-term priorities. One of that is rebuilding institutional knowledge a bit deeper.
And sharing it a bit more.
Sharing it a bit more, but that's communicate. So we could count on a lot of goodwill from the community, which has been extremely helpful. A lot of past contributors, even though they were busy and couldn't really help be hands-on the code base, were still very happy to come and share some of their knowledge of especially the decisions that were made, because this is usually the thing that is the least well documented. We talked to Neil here, we talked to Abe, we talked to people who worked deeply on processing for, like Sam Pottinger and others. So yeah, we're very grateful for all that support. The other thing is starting to address some of the technical debt. And for this,
we made the decision to move towards Gradle. So processing before was built with Ant, and now we're starting to move to Gradle. We're also adding Jetpack Compose, and we've also we're releasing processing core now also on Maven.
Yeah. And also reconnecting with the community through some workshops, and also that was mentioned in the state of LGM. We started last year this PROS grant, that is a developer grant. We had 5 last year, we have 3 this year. Each is a $10,000 grant for the summer with mentorship. And part of the value of that, besides like the value for the grantees themselves to learn and get mentored, was also for us in the context of this recovery, was to get in a controlled environment some people interacting with the code base in a limited way, that we could see what they struggled with, where the friction points were, and address those before we started like making more fuss and bringing more people in. We also tried to remove further barriers to contribution using some of the tools that are provided by GitHub, like issue templates. We finally implemented a code of conduct. We improved contributor recognition by adopting the all contribution specification, all contributors. We now build on pull requests and more. We also wanted to make it a lot easier to build.
Yeah, so before there were a lot of steps involved in getting processing to build and run, and now it's like 3. So if you're a new person and you want to start building on processing, just clone it, install the JDK, and hit run.
Yeah, and finally, the PD is great for first-timers, but and for people building smaller things. But at some point, people tend to run into a wall with the size of projects that they can build, and this unfortunately makes it feel like you can't make complex projects with processing, which isn't true. But there are limitations that are built in and by design in the PDE, because it's meant for beginners. So we want to make it easier for people to build larger things with processing, and that's why we're announcing that we will be releasing an official plugin for VS Code. IntelliJ is coming next, built upon the language server protocol and some other things that we've worked on infrastructure-wise. we're at the end of the time. So, so yeah, we released processing 4.4, which was the first Gradle release on March 14th. I'm going to skip a little bit. Yeah, better README, roadmap, yeah, project updates, this very talk, and yeah, so yeah, some key learnings are here for you to see. I think the most important one's probably to build systems that grow your ability to receive help, and very importantly as well, set the tone. We haven't talked about this very much, but yeah, a lot of people can be turned away from open source when they get rough responses, and we've really taken care to reply kindly to people. So yeah, we're here
Thank everybody.
Today. Yeah, thank people for their contributions. Please come help, and please come to our Butterfeather. Thank you very much.